All right, ready to absolutely ace your GCSE history exam? We're going to cut straight to the chase and tackle the big, predicted 16-mark questions for that medicine through time paper. Let's get you those top marks.
So we all know that feeling, right? You turn to the back of the exam paper and there it is, that huge judgment question. It can feel pretty scary, but you know what? It's also where you can hoover up a massive amount of marks.
But honestly, don't worry, there's an absolute code to cracking these questions, a clear formula for success, and I am going to walk you through it step by step right now.
Okay, let's dive in with our game plan. Now, before we even touch the history, you need a rock-solid structure. Think of this as your blueprint for a top-grade answer every single time.
So here it is, a super simple, four-step structure that works for any 16-mark question. You kick off with your judgment right up front. Then you have one paragraph agreeing with the statement, one paragraph arguing against it, and you finish with a powerful conclusion that explains why you've decided on that final answer. It's simple, it's effective, and trust me, it's exactly what examiners are desperate to see.
So why does that structure work so well? Well, it's because it literally forces you to do everything on the examiner's checklist. It guarantees you stay focused on the question, you give arguments for and against, and you build towards that crucial, well-supported final judgment. Ticking these boxes is your ticket to the top marks. Simple as that.
All right, let's put this into practice. Our first predicted topic, the medieval and Renaissance periods. So imagine you open the paper and see this statement. Medicine in c. 1250 to c. 1700 was mainly based on religion. How do we use our structure to tackle that?
You'd build your argument just like this. So, for your agree paragraph, you'd be all over the massive influence of the church. It controlled education, ran the hospitals, and told everyone that illness was a punishment from God. But then, for your disagree paragraph, you'd switch gears and talk about what was actually happening day to day. Most treatments were really based on Galen and his theory of the four humors. You know, things like bloodletting and purging.
Now, listen up, because this is the bit that pushes you into the top grades. You have to show change over time. You need to explain that, yeah, religion and Galen were the big dogs for ages, but the ground started to shift during the Renaissance. Guys like Vesalius, Harvey, and Sydenham, they started to use observation, real science, to challenge those old ideas.
And when you put all that thinking together, this is what it looks like. A proper, sophisticated grade 9 judgment. See how it's not a simple yes or no? It's balanced, it's got nuance, and it shows you understand that crucial story of change. That's the kind of conclusion you're aiming for.
Right, let's move on to another absolute classic topic, surgery. This is such a good theme to show off your understanding of long-term change and how all the different factors link up. Let's imagine the statement is, science was the most important factor in the development of surgery.
You can pretty much boil down the entire history of surgery to three huge problems that surgeons just couldn't solve for centuries: pain, infection, and bleeding. And as this timeline shows, boom, the industrial era. That was the massive turning point, the moment science finally came up with answers for pain and infection.
So here we go again. It's all about building that balanced argument. On one hand, of course, science and tech are the heroes of the story. Without anesthetics and antiseptics, surgery was basically stuck in the Dark Ages. But then, you bring in the other factors. Would these amazing discoveries have actually been used without pioneering individuals like Simpson and Lister pushing for them? Or without the pressure of something like World War I forcing innovation? Probably not. Progress would have been so much slower.
And here's the real top-level insight, okay? Factors do not work in isolation. Science might provide the amazing new tools, but it takes brave individuals and changing attitudes to actually pick up those tools and use them. Making that link in your judgment shows the examiner you're thinking like a proper historian.
Okay, let's nail our final big topic, prevention. So, how did people stop themselves from getting sick in the first place? A really likely question here is something like this. Government was the most important factor in improving prevention.
The story of prevention is really just one of a massive shift. It moves from individuals relying on things like prayer and, carrying herbs to ward off bad smells to huge, large-scale government action that's based on actual science. And that big turning point? It's the 19th century. So for your argument, you can go in really strong. You can say that from the 1875 Public Health Act, the government became the main player. Absolutely. But, and here's the clever bit, you qualify it. You argue that the government could only be so effective because science, thanks to people like Jenner and Pasteur, had finally given them the right tools to do the job.
You see how that works? That is how you link factors together for a top-level judgment. You're not just saying it was the government. You're arguing the government became the most important factor from this point on, but it needed science to make it happen. That layered analysis is exactly what examiners are looking for.
Right, to finish up, let's pull all this together into a little revision toolkit for you. Something you can basically take into the exam hall in your head. Think of these as your secret weapons.
Honestly, just think of this slide as your ultimate cheat sheet. It gives you a powerful, balanced, and sophisticated starting point for a judgment on 4 of the biggest themes they could throw at you. Memorize these core ideas, learn them, then you can adapt them to whatever specific question you get. They're the building blocks of a top-mark answer.
You have all the tools you need now. Just remember that 4-part structure, pack your paragraphs with specific, killer evidence, and always finish with a clear, final judgment that answers the question. You've totally got this.
You are now ready to go and tackle that 16 marker. So go on, plan an answer to one of these questions right now. Go and smash that exam. You know exactly what you need to do. Good luck.